Hello everybody, welcome back to 7 Days. We are in the LizLabz Beginner series, and it is just that, the very, very beginning parts of the game. Now, first off, I just want to go ahead and say, if you were following along with the series, make sure that once you watch the video, you go back and read the comment section below, because there tends to be a lot of people who have a whole lot more insight, knowledge, or maybe they've had a chance to go through things that I have not had a chance to go through yet, and we'll list them down in the comment section, things that I didn't think about putting into the tutorial, or things that while I was sick I completely left out. Can I get F's in the comments for the poor boar that I left out of the animal series? Just all of the animals that I have? I even brought in the angry chicken, which is apparently just a Twitch feature for during streaming. It has nothing to do with regular gameplay, it's not in the game. Today, we are instead going to cover character progression in the many forms that it takes place. This is going to be an overview, and in some cases, some of these things are probably going to be touched on in other tutorials. As I begin a tutorial, I kind of want to brush over all of them, so you'll kind of understand what it is that, what it means by character progression in this sense. Or what it means whenever I say there's a tech tier of a weapon as opposed to the level of the weapon, and how those two things actually affect how your character utilizes that item. So in order to cover that, I'm going to cover the different methods of character progression. We're going to cover leveling, skill points, magazines, books, challenges, loots, biomes, game stages, tech tiers, and levels. All in this video. We're going to touch on all of them. Some of them we are going to dig down in later on. For instance, say the stone axe and the claw hammer. Is it important to have a claw hammer? What about the stone axe and the fire axe? Should I even worry about that? What about the stone shovel to the iron shovel? How do all of these work around, and what is this number down here? And what do you mean by tech tiers? I mean, how does that even affect your gameplay? We're going to get into that because it actually has to do with a bit of, not completely, a bit of level progression, because that is a thing that happens that progresses your character to the next stage in some form. So we're going to touch on it, but we are going to touch more on those particular things and how you do those and how you can manipulate the tech tiers and the levels to get the kind of items you want for the loot you wish to spend for said item. Alright, first things first, of the character progression, well, leveling. Oi, zombie! Okay, now, we are going to kill the Maryland. Now, if you'll see in the bottom corner, it's got plus 400 XP. And if you will notice, there is a purple bar above my tool belt that is starting to gain, well, purple. It's getting more purple. It's gaining experience levels. You can actually check this on your character here. XP to next level, 8,967. How much XP we need in order to gain our new level. We are currently a level 2. Now, every time we level, we are going to gain what is called a skill point. And it will show up here. If you have accrued a few skill points, it'll be points available and however many you get. Now, whenever you do your tutorial challenge, which I'm going to show in just a second, you will auto get 4 points that you can go ahead and put into something, and I will show you the best place to put those points in just a second. Should you get additional points, they will show up here, and you can put them into these first several, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these first 5 skills. These last 2 things are not skill based. These are go find items inside the world. This should technically be its own tab. It's kind of confusing if people have never played it before. They're going to wonder, why can't I spend a skill point, which is missing from up here, as you'll see. They don't show up here, they only show up where you can use them. Why can't I spend a skill point here? This doesn't make any sense. Well, it's because this is not opened up with skill points. You cannot get these things by leveling. You also cannot get these things by leveling. You have to go out and find magazines. These are books that you go out and find, and we'll cover those more later on. Those are also forms of progression for your character. And here's why. There are certain abilities your character will gain from reading certain books, like doing additional damage, having more stamina, not taking damage from certain things. What's one of them that's kind of odd? It was, for this one, the last shot in the chamber does double damage. The Lucky Looter allows you to find more types of loot depending on which one you get. The Pistol Pete, these guys actually open up the ability to craft certain items, so some things are not even found in the books. at all. You cannot find them inside these magazines. They will open up the ability to level your items, we'll get into later. They will allow you to increase your level on items and eventually your tech tiers on items, but will not allow you to craft everything. They're opened up via a book. So if you're like looking for AP ammo to craft, those are opened up in books. Just about every single one of them that I know of in order to craft those is covered by a book. We've got our AP 9mm. If you're wanting to actually craft things, that's another thing. If you're wanting to craft thing and say I want to make an AP ammo for my pistol for one way or another, AP 9mm, you type it in and it's locked right here. You can't craft it. And it will actually tell you here, it says unlocks, and it will tell you what you need in order to craft that item. And it will also show you, if you hit the book, it will show you over here where you can go over and look for it to see what all you have. So that is a way of progressing the game. I want you to understand, once you get towards level, I don't know, depending your setting, I would say 75, 80, you should be able to make at least one type of AP ammo. Or at least try to look for a way to create one type of AP ammo. Say, for instance, the traders that are offering you loot and everything, they give you the ability to collect a book that allows you to make AP ammo of one type. You are running, I don't know, shotguns. What they're giving you is the ability to make AP 9mm, which goes inside the pistol. The issue is you're not actually spec'd into that weapon, but you're not going to make AP ammo for your shotgun yet. It would not be a bad idea to go ahead and gain the ability to have AP ammo, which is armor piercing, by the way. It would be a good idea to go ahead and have that for a Horde Night. So that would actually be a good magazine, or rather book, to get. Now, understand, in a lot of cases, whenever you're listening to people who've been playing the game for a long time, there are certain terms that are interchangeable, but they do not mean the same thing. These are books. These are crafting skill magazines. This is a level 1, and the iron tools are a tech tier higher than that. These are all complicated things, and I promise you I will go over more of them, but for now, understand the difference between skill points from experience, the perk points giving you the ability to craft certain things, and the magazines allowing you the ability to craft higher tiers of things, or higher levels of things. That's another way of progressing your character. Now, if we level, actually, there's an easier way to level, and it will actually give me a chance to show you guys how to progress something else. Right now, we're going to do the tutorial challenge, which is listed over there. These crafting challenges at the very, very beginning are shown up in here. It says to open the challenge window with Y, and it will show up here. I have actually already done a few of these, so let me cash those out by hitting W. And I am supposed to be gathering plant fibers, wood. Okay. And now it says hold X, which means it's not actually asking you to craft it. If you already have one, or somebody's already crafted one and they just throw it on the ground and you pick it up, it will count because you're holding the item. You don't necessarily have to craft it. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't wind up crafting it. Unless, of course, you're coming into a server late and someone else has already crafted all of these items, in which case they might stick all of their stuff into a box and you could pick it up. Or if you have a spouse that plays along with you and they get in like a week before you or something like that, so you're just going to go behind them and pick those items up. Whenever it says gather, that just means you need to hold on to it or hold it in your inventory. If it says hold it in your hand, obviously it's going to be the toolbar and you actually need to put it on in your character's hand. If it says harvest, that means you actually have to go over and harvest. You can't just pick up your wood and hold it. You actually have to go out and harvest the item. Now, while you're doing these missions, thankfully these little items show up, so you'll be able to find a nest. Just look for that little icon that it was just showing. We got a couple of feathers. We're just gonna click on this, and if you shift left click, it will give you the max amount you can make inside your inventory. So it starts every time I come into my inventory, it's like, here, you can do 1. Well, if you click on the item with your left mouse button, shift and then left click on that, that will make the max amount you can out of your inventory and then craft. Okay, now we open our challenges menu with Y, and we're just going to collect all of these things. Okay, now let's just take a look at this window. It says redeem the rewards, which is the last thing in this whole list. This is going to open up all of these other things. So what it says is redeem all of the rewards earned by completing challenges in the basics of the survival group. Select each completed challenge marked in green, press the redeem, or use the W, which we just did. And afterwards you will get the group completion reward. So let's go ahead and get that. We got 100 experience. We've got the quest started for us to go see the trader. There we go. And we go to the trader. Now, what did that do for us exactly? We got 100 experience. That opened up our new challenge group, which is all of the rest of the challenges, actually. But for the purposes of this, it gave us skill points. First skill point for everyone is probably going to be either Iron Gut or Pain Tolerance. You have 4 skill points to start your game out with after you do those. So my suggestion is Pain Tolerance. It allows you to take less damage and less likely to get concussed, which is basically a zombie thwopping you upside the head really, really hard. The whole world goes dizzy, you can't defend yourself. It's a really sucky thing to get yourself into, especially when you kind of get stun locked because you're surrounded by zombies. So the sooner you can get this one all the way to where you never get stunned hardly, the better. Then I would say take some Iron Gut, because Iron Gut is like a big, big thing to start the game out with. Otherwise your character's going to be hungry all the time. I mean, all the time. Every single time you turn around, your character's going to be hungry and thirsty. The sooner you can work on this one, the better. My next one is Cardio. Early game, you're going to be running around, doing things, seeing new areas, being excited about this, that, or whatever kind of loot you may or may not have found. It's very easy to see a whole bunch of loot, see a whole bunch of things that you want to gather, and go do 5,000 different things without really paying attention to the fact that you're always running. Your finger's always on the shift button. I know, I've been there. It's really bad. You're not supposed to do it, but I get impatient, so I do it anyway. Now, one of the biggest issues that you have is when you're running and you're losing stamina, it also takes stamina in order to swing your weapon. Your character will actually stand there and get its face beat in if it has no stamina. It will not even try to swing their club. It won't do a half punch. It won't do like a push away of the zombie or anything like that. You just won't swing and you'll just get it all to your face. So be very, very careful with that. Increasing your stamina early on is such a good idea. Now, you might be tempted after seeing Healing Factor to go ahead and take Healing Factor. I caution you against it until after you either get another point into Iron Gut, 2 points into Iron Gut, and then maybe go into this one, or you have a lot of food, or you're a farmer and can produce your own food. One or the other. As long as you have that one, then Healing Factor is fine. And the reason being is because it says you have a fast metabolism. By that it means it's going to eat through your food. Gain 1 health every 35 seconds with natural healing. Critical injuries heal 20% faster. Now, this is an awesome perk to put for your character, as long as you have the ability to feed the perk. Now, early game, you may not get beat in the head as much. I don't know. It just depends on how you play, how cautious you are. Be cautious about this. When my last perk point would actually be Running Gun, if you're planning on perking into any sort of non-melee weapon at all. I would say if you're planning on, even if you're going to use a sidearm, because the slowdown on this is so incredibly bad, I say go into Running Gun. Every single time. Especially since the pipe weapons are your starter item, and they are so slow to reload, you could probably die waiting on it to reload. Now, the next perk point that you get, I would either put into parkour because it allows you to reduce the amount of stamina used during jumping, and at another perk point you can fall a little bit further and not get injured. Those are both very, very good. Or put it into the armor you plan on going into, or into the weapon that you plan on going into. Either one is good. At one point, I would have said the Better Barter, Daring Adventurer, or something like that is a good one to go into. I don't think so anymore. If you are planning on focusing on crafting, there's a chance you could play a character where you're not focused on crafting, in which case don't take this perk point. If you are focused on crafting and you want to build all of your own tools and weapons and armor and everything, immediately dumping that last point instead of going into your armor or your weapon or whatever, go into advanced engineering. And the reason why, which is another way of progressing your character, is finding books. So in order to find the books, your percentage increase of finding said book is geared by how many perk points you have into the thing that governs it. Say, for instance, I want to find vehicle books. I want to be able to craft my own vehicle as quickly as possible. Well, for starters, you're going to have to be able to build, except for the bike, you're going to have to be able to build it on a workbench. We'll get into workbenches and crafting and all that stuff here soon. But you're going to have to be able to craft everything but the bike. So I will go ahead and throw this here, and I will probably say it later on. Never craft your bike unless you just happen to have the materials that you found, because at the end of your tier 1 missions, which we will get to soon, at the end of your tier 1 missions, you will be able to get one as a reward. It's like one of the better rewards that you can actually get from this game. Some people, their first concern is a vehicle, not the workbench or not the dew collector or anything else like that. They just want ability to go faster. So you don't necessarily need that. Just run through your tier 1 missions and you'll get a bike. So if you have something you would rather put that first perk point into, advanced engineering, not necessarily. It's where I usually put mine because I like crafting a whole lot of stuff. So now you can't just dump all of your points into these cool little features or whatever you want to call them. These little things right here, they are governed by their base stats. Strength is governing all of these. Intellect is governing all of these, and they are actually locked out until you buy into it enough to open it up. Say, for some reason or another, I wanted to go into... This one's completely blacked out. I can't even take the first perk point in this one until I get to intellect of level 3. So what I could do is take my next skill point, put it into here, right here, and then this one will actually open up and we can use it. If we are on this one, technically I just need a skill point and I could dump it into this, but my next level has to be opened with an intellect of level 3, in which case we still have to dump another point into this one. Now, understand each one of those sections are that way. They are all governed by their base attribute. And each one of them, the base attribute, also has things that go along with it that are also very important to character progression. It's not just dump your points here and you can open up the stuff below it. It's dump your points here and the weapons that are governed by this particular thing. Say, intellect is the electrocutioner and the robotics. So with your stun baton, which is a pretty bad A weapon, or your robots, which is like the sledge turret, the, here we go. I will actually just throw these guys out there so you can see them. Our turret, and then our drone. Which is this one. Now, with these items... We have that one. And we have that one. Okay. Now, complete. Thank you. Now, if we are pumping a whole bunch of points into our intellect, we actually unlock the ability, let's see, at 2 points, I have 110% headshot damage and a 10% chance to dismember with stun batons and robotic turrets, which is both of these weapons. Now, you might see that there is a thing that happens with these. I'll talk more about the drone and everything else like that in a much later episode. These guys are very fun to play with. If you find one, definitely try to implement them. But the damage of these guys is governed by my character's intellect. This guy right here will have a better chance of knocking zombies over, dismembering, which taking a leg out does help during a horde night. Or in the case of certain zombies, a headshot on a weaker zombie from one of these guys can make it where you don't have to fight it at all. Same with this guy right here. Now, let me just go ahead and cover the fact that I only have one operating at a time. If you check out these, the robotic inventor, we have got robots will do 10% more damage. So not only am I getting the damage buff from here, I got 200%, 210%. The next time I'll do 220%. But then on top of that, I got a 10% more damage and a 30% fire rate, which also governs the sledge turret back behind it. The fire rate is how fast the piston will fire. And then the active range is 10, 15, 30, so the further, if I take perk points, it will work further away. See, it will shut off after I get so far away. So whenever I take perk points into that one, it gives me some other bonus. And then if we look even further down here, you can deploy 2 robots at one time and they can both be active. You get a reloading robotic weapons 20% faster, which means if you're using him for raiding or whatever, you'll be able to reload it faster, which is really, really nice. And if I'm not mistaken, it does stack with your quicker reload that you can get over here. Somebody let me know whether or not this does or does not stack. I have no idea if running gun and that stack or not. That would be an interesting thing to check out. But, and then you can actually deploy 2 of these. So you could have 2 of these guys in a building with you shooting across from each other and taking out bad guys. Or you can have one of these going and one of these going, and this guy can protect you during, say, a horde night, fighting off the vultures above you, and this guy right here knocking zombies off of your pathway or however you want to fight with them. The point is in this side, this character progression, this particular type of character progression, not only are you getting the intellect buff, which is going to buff the weapon that you're using, and if you are in the intellect tree and already using robots, I would say go ahead and use the stun baton. Mind you, the stun baton is kind of like, well, every single one of the melee weapons you have to spec into and actively use them and know how to use them. And know what books go along with them and actively go after those particular books, which I'm going to get to in just a second. So not only do we have the intellect, with all of its perk points, then we have the robotics So not only do we have the intellect that is giving you its buffs, the extra damage, the chance to dismember, then you have the robotics inventor that is also giving you its buffs. The more damage, the extra reload, the being able to deploy more, that is going to progress your character a lot too, because it's going to allow you to cause more damage, deal more firepower across the board. Depending on which one of these weapons you're trying to use and how you're deploying them, it can really amp up your game on how you're going to play. So keep in mind that. Now, on top of this, there are more things. Yes, guys, there's a whole nother layer to this onion. Then we have the books that go along with it. As you can see, this actually required a video all on its own, character progression, because the character progression doesn't stop at how much experience you're getting. That's just like the baseline thing on what's going to say your character is king or queen of the apocalypse, and whether or not your character is just barely making it and having to run out of tier 5. So the next thing we've got to worry about is our tech junkie books. I have these weapons, and I want to be able to perk into my intellect. I'm going to perk into those weapons. I'm not only that, I'm also going to perk into this is the batons. This has nothing to do with it. Always read it, because sometimes you never know which thing is going to affect your stuff. Okay, so the robotic weapons do 10% more damage. Robotic weapons and stun batons degrade 20% slower. These guys do degrade the same way your weapons do, the same way your car does. You'll have to fix them. This stops you from having to fix them as much. Then, you actually craft the AP ammo, which is the same as the other books, the other things. Say you had a 9mm, the way to craft the AP ammo, you have to find the book. And it is the same with these guys. Craft robotic turret shells. Craft the stun repulsor mod, which is like, if you're going to do the stun baton, as soon as you can get the stun repulsor mod, the better. And after you get the stun repulsor mod, never use the candy again. Up into the point where you can use the candy, the atomic candies. Hold on. Let me just cover this really quick too, because I was supposed to just brush over it, but it occurs to me I probably should go ahead and talk about it. Okay, another form of character progression is not just your weapons, your magazines, your perk points that go into it. It's also knowing what each weapon requires. Say, for instance, you have the stun baton. Well, a lot of people will claim that the stun baton is a very, very bad weapon. And it's typically because they're not using it correctly, and I'm fixing to show you why. Okay, first off, okay, I just got the charge on this. I'm going to pause it for a second so you guys can actually see. It took me several hits to get the charge. That's what the stun baton does, is the more you hit a zombie, the more it charges, and once it charges, it does this. Or rather, it doesn't. Because he died, and it didn't work. Hold on. I just need my stamina back so I can actually show this. There it goes. It's doing Is there somebody I haven't damaged at all? Hang on. There we go, there we go. And as you can see, it stunned him for a minute amount of time. Now, if I were to... There we go, that's what the nerd tats are supposed to do. Now, so that's another form of character progression. Before you get the stun repulsor mod, you're taking a candy that also helps. Make sure that you are getting a chance to look through the vending machines and check the effects of all of the candy. That's another character progression. They fixed it. Okay, never mind, they fixed it. It might also be because the way in which I did it. Now that I think about it, hang on. Let's get rid of it. Okay, now then, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what it was that I was talking about. It used to be that whenever you put the stun repulsor mod into your weapon, and it did the ejection thing, if you took the candies along with it, it would stun all of the people in the area, but not throw them back. So yeah, that it has been fixed apparently. Apparently that has been fixed, so the candies are fine to use. So that's another part of area of progression, is the stun repulsor mod and the candies that go along with it. And most of the weapons, they have a candy or a medicine that will make it better. So make sure that you check inside the vending machines. Make sure you check meds and stuff like that. Like beer helps with your knuckles. And the, which one is it? The Grandpa's Moonshine? Grandpa's Moonshine. Gives all melee damage a punch, which is, so you actually have beer and then it amps up the beer. So your knuckles have one. There's a medicine for projectiles. There's a medicine for, well, a lot of the different things. There's a medicine for mining. There's a medicine for scavenging, which will also help your gameplay. Go through, look at all the candies. I will actually be doing things covering the food and the candies later on, so I'm not going to get too deep into them other than to say make sure you pay attention to them. Inside the vending machines, they're not just like little food items. There are abilities that go along with it. So that's another form of character progression, another way to amp your character up. Then, to go back to the books, because I also want to cover this, in a lot of cases, some of the books open up an ability that takes the game to the next phase in the most extreme way. Say, for instance, the batter up thing. Actually, finishing this book series does something that will make your character 1,000 times better. In this particular case, the batter up will take your weapon and make it, well, it makes it very, very usable at late game stages. Power attacks that kill your enemy refill your stamina meter. One of the biggest problems with a melee weapon is running out of stamina. So if you can kill a bad guy and then go after, okay, say you've got a regular zombie over here and you've got your rad zombie over here. Well, you know, you can smack the rad a couple of times and then go over here and kill the normal zombie, because it will probably be able to do it with one shot. Because if you're already getting rads, you're pretty high level. So you go slap the one with the rads, then you go over here and you kill the one that's normal. And because your stamina bar is refilled, you don't have to wait. You can immediately go back to smacking on the rad one, which is another way of amping up your character with this particular book. And you'd only get that if you find that book, which is the reason why the books are so important. And for the weapon I was just using, let's see, first off, you have the stun baton charging. This one gives you a chance to get 25% more regular charges. That is game-changing for the stun baton. If you don't find this book early on, it will be an exhausting weapon to use. The stun repulsor mod makes it fun to play with, but the ability to charge it faster, because it only does that throwback thing or the stun thing whenever it charges. So it charging 25% or 50% faster. That means on average every 2 times you hit something, supposedly, every 2 times you hit something, it should charge if you're using the power attack. And then, this one right here for the robots that I was just showing, the increased fire rate for the robots. So on top of the increased fire rate that you're getting from the perk that goes along with them, you're also getting an increased fire rate with your robotic weapons thing. And then, of course, here at the end, most of these ones that cover the basic weapons like your pistols and your automatic weapons and your shotguns and stuff like that, the final one on this one is being able to craft your ammo in bulk, which saves so much time and saves so much resources, and it is exceptionally hard to get this particular set done so you can craft the bulk ammo like 9mm. It is very, very hard to get any of these book series done. And in this particular case, you have automatic weapons, but this one does not allow you to craft the bulk ammo. It is actually the sniper one that allows you to craft bulk ammo for it. So definitely go through those. Those are ways to progress your character. That is a lot of stuff to cover having to do with it. So there are layers of progression just with your character alone, and the loot that you can find, the next layer of progression. I know, guys, there are so many layers to this onion. It is ridiculous. The next layer is your trader level that is going to progress your character, and not so much the, well, kind of, sort of, just the teensiest little bit, the little of it is your ability to get missions to higher level POIs. You can, from the very start of the game, just walk down your street with your stone axe and your club and hop into a tier 5 POI. You are perfectly capable of doing so. I've done it before. It's not usually recommended because, what's the easiest way to explain this before I start talking about zombie spawn or whatever else like that? There are certain areas inside POIs, particularly boss rooms, higher level POIs, where it's considered a boss zombie load type of thing, in which case there's always, no matter your level, is going to be a higher tier zombie or a zombie of a particular type. You can go into certain level POIs and the zombie that is going to spawn there will always be a rad intentionally. So be very, very careful about going on day 1 to a tier 5 because you're not going to have a way to kill the rad. Okay, now the next progression level is probably going to be the progression that you get from your trader, which, mind you, the traders have been severely nerfed. And at the same time, it's severely important that you also interact with the traders because they're now part of your challenges. It's a contradiction in terms. We have been told you must interact with the traders, but the traders are not going to give you anything good, basically. So what you get in replacement is another type of progression. First off, I will just go ahead and cover this. I'll probably cover it a little bit more later on. There is the better barter, which allows you to get better deals from buying and selling. And then there is daring adventurer, which gives you better access to trader items. It does not give you better loot from doing missions anymore. It does not do that. I'm wondering whether or not there is something else that allows you to do that. It's not even a book either. Can we get those perk back in a book or something? Anything? Please, fun pimps. Please, the ability to get better loot. Even if you have to sacrifice for a little bit of extra loot. Better loot, not extra loot. I don't want to get 2 boxes of books. I'm a nerd and I'm getting tired of how much I'm having to look for books. But as you can see, the books are very, very important. Now, the traders will send you in progressive levels to each one of the types of POIs, so you'll have a chance to progress in, I don't know if I will say good increments. I feel like the tier 1s and tier 2s take an exceptionally long amount of time, but it's also because your tier 1s, they only count for 1 and you have to do 10 to progress to the next one. Whenever you get to tier 5, it's counting as 5 and you progress to the next one. Of course, your tier 5s take longer to do, so these kind of balance out. That's neither here nor there. The point being is you can progress with your traders, and that in some ways helps your character progress because you are getting experience, you're getting loot. Eventually they get to where they kind of sort of like you. If you put your perk points into it, which is yet again a thing that I said that you kind of need to do in order to progress your character, is between these, your books, your crafting skills, and all of that stuff, and then you add in your traders. Now, on top of this type of progression, let's talk really quickly about your loot level and your game stage. Loot level found here. Your loot stage has to do with the level of... Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to explain this. Different levels of loot open up at certain loot stages. So if you are looking for... I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, so don't hold me accountable to these numbers. There are videos out there. If you hunt enough, you can probably find people who have graphs for this. I do not have any graphs. So we're going to say, suppose you are looking for, I don't know, a stone axe. I mean, an iron axe. And you're wanting to find one. This one is going to be locked between certain loot levels. Between, I don't know, let's say a loot level of 25 to 50. This is going to be found in the 25 to 50 range. These are just guesses. So in order to find that, you could go around in the world and find a place that allows you to have that kind of loot. What affects that? Well, the level that you are. I'm currently level 3. My loot stage is level 3. If I go over here, my loot stage is now level 12. Now, how did we get from 3 to 12? There's actually a formula for this. There's a video out there that covers all of this. I have linked it inside a different video. Please go back and check that video. It was my previous one where I talked about all these things. Guns, Nerds, and Steel covers this in a video talking about loot stage and the graph. He actually has a worksheet that you can download and then put the information in and it'll calculate it for you and everything. So if you're trying to hunt for a specific item that is within a loot stage, first off, you're going to need to know the loot stage. I don't offhand have all of these numbers. I'm pretty sure there's a video out there that covers those. In order to find this particular item, you need a loot stage of this to this. Well, you would go to an area and check it. Loot stage is this. It's 12. Well, this one is not going to give me an iron axe if I have to be at a loot stage of 25. Well, what actually covered that is, first off, we're in the Pine Forest, which does not give me any loot bonuses. We are in a tier 3 POI standing here. That apparently does give me a bonus because you can see out there on the road I'm only 3, here I'm 12. What happens if we go find ourselves a tier 5 POI? Okay, now here, I did cover this before. You can see your loot stage now. This is 26. I'm just out here in the snow. So it's more than it was inside of the tier 3 POI and more than that biome. I'm just standing out here on the road and my loot stage is so much better. Now, what happens if I go over here to Higashi, which is a tier 5 POI? Now, as you can see, this is my difficulty level. I have got 5 skulls that are the POI, and then I've got 1.5 skull, which is the biome difficulty. And what does that do to my loot stage? I'm at 41. So even at, what level am I? Even at a tier 3, I can go into this building and potentially find this item, assuming it's between 25 and 50. I don't have those numbers offhand. I'm going to keep saying that because I'm pretty sure someone's going to get in the comment section. Well, actually, it's... No, I don't have the numbers in front of me. So I'm just saying, if you're looking for a particular type of weapon and you're not finding the tech tier, this is a tech tier. You have the stone axe, you have the iron axe, and you have the steel axe. Well, these guys are between, say, 1 to, or level 0 even, because you pop in at level 0, all the way up to 25. These are between 25 and 50, and between 50 to whatever level, these guys would show up. So that's basically how it's bracketed off. The loot is bracketed off between tiers, loot stages. So in order to find particular types of stuff that you're looking for, you might have to go to a particular biome, a particular POI. That is basically character progression whenever it comes to your loot stage. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics because, like I said, I don't have the specifics in front of me. There are people who have those math problems, and I would say that's not necessarily for beginner stuff. It's just to let you know that this exists in the game, that this is a mechanic that actually happens in the game. If you go into a harder biome, if you go into a higher POI, you are going to find better loot earlier. Now, another form of progression is going to be your game stage. Now, what exactly is affected by your game stage? From what we have noticed, supposedly, the only thing this affects is your Horde Night. Your Horde Night is gauged off of your game stage. Now, I don't know whether or not this in any way affects any other part other than the zombie spawn that happens whenever you take on a mission. If I just walk into any building, off the street, wherever it is I'm at, the zombie spawn that happens in there is like a neutral spawn of zombies that happens in there. It is not necessarily geared towards your character, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Say, for instance, here I am at level 3. At level 3, I decide to hop into Higashi. Well, Higashi has got its normal spawn. But somehow or another on tier 3, on level 3 rather, I managed to get this from a trader. How would I do that? I don't know, unless maybe you're in a server and someone shared a mission with you and you went into this mission with other people, in which case that's kind of a bad idea because you're just going to get your butt handed to you. This happens to me every single time I get into a server. Trust me when I say you're just going to get your butt handed to you. But you will find extra loot here, and the zombies inside are going to be a lower level because you are. Now, it's not going to get rid of all of the crazy that is going to happen on this roof. It will just be lessened. But by lessened, it might mean there's a few less zombies. It might mean that they are not as many rads. It's not going to get rid of all of the badness that exists inside a POI. It's just going to geared more towards your level. So as far as I know, game stage only affects those two things. And I'm not even 100% on that one because I haven't dug through the HTML files to see whether or not any of those things have changed. And like I said, I am just now experiencing this new version, and there are new things that I find all the time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is it having to cover character progression. And I'm using that kind of in quotes because not all of this is technically progression. It's just things that are going to change between your character starting out spawning in to when your character is going to get to that badass moment, which it usually does towards the end of it, when you're able to fight off hordes and hordes of zombies and not feel like you're doing very much. Character progression is not just how much experience your character gets. It's what books you found, where you've perked your character at, whether or not you even perked into the right weapons and you're using them. Now, one thing I will go ahead and tell you that you will need to know in case the bad happens, and I won't say it's actually all that bad, it's just kind of expensive. And by expensive, I mean it's very, very expensive. This guy right here, which I have found out is occasionally in loot with one of my characters. Didn't know that it was ever in loot. It's called Forget an Elixir. If for some reason you are playing your character and you decide to change, like you're tired of playing that particular weapon, or you've decided you no longer need it, or in the case of I've got my base, I've got all of my workbenches, I've really got most of the things that I need, and I don't need my workbenches to produce things any faster, and I've got all my vehicles, and I really don't care about how many repair kits it takes to fix my vehicle, because I've got everything that I need that way. Well, you could technically re-perk your skills. Once you drink that stuff, it will take all of your perk points. Let's just go ahead and use it. Use it. And it will ask you beforehand on whether or not you want to reset. There we go. Now all of my character points are right here, and I have no character points sitting in here, which means I can reassign them. You can get a whole lot of perk points back because these are 1 point apiece until you get to 7, in which case, or is it 6? Yeah, 6. They're 2 points each. And then when you hit 9, they're 3 points each. So that's a whole lot of perk points tied up into this. Maybe, like I said, you're not going to be crafting a whole lot of stuff. Maybe you don't need Miner 69 or a Mother Load anymore. These can get kind of expensive towards the bottom because you need an intellect, a strength of level 7. And after you get down here to 7, that's 2 points. So if across the board you have a few things that you want to reassign, or you just want to spec out of a particular weapon, you start out the game using clubs because it tells you to make a club, so you start the game out using clubs, and you sink points into it. Then you decide, you know what, I don't want to use clubs. I want to use a sword. I want to have a machete, and that's what I want to perk into. So these are all reasons to use a Forget an Elixir to reset your points and go back to start on those. You have all of your points, and you can reassign them. Now, as far as progression goes, that is the only thing that you can reset. It kind of makes sense that you wouldn't want to reset your books. You wouldn't want to have to redo any of that. I have heard of several other people. I'll say this right here because I never think about it, but if you want to do it early game, is a good time to know that it's a thing that you can do. Whenever you read these books, you get experience from reading these books. So if you have the inventory space, the patience, and a little bit of extra money, you can store all of your books and all of your magazines into a box. Get yourself a learning elixir, which is one of these, which gives you 20% XP for 6 minutes. You can drink one of those. You can find these in vending machines. You can find them as loot. You can also craft them later on. Say you want to get a whole lot of experience for it. You can read those magazines and those books after drinking that. You can also drink this before you do upgrades, especially the cobblestone to concrete and concrete to steel. These are exceptionally useful. You can use these before you go mining. You can use them before Horde Night to get that extra experience. So there's a lot of different stages, different layers of progression for your character. Like I said, it's not just experience and assigning points like it is in some other games. There's a whole lot to it. It's your weapons, it's your books, it's your magazines, it's your trader level, it's your loot stage, your game stage, the whole 9 yards, guys. So that is it for this particular video. I do hope it wasn't too terribly confusing. There's a lot there, I know. I do apologize. I'm going to be getting into a lot of this stuff way later on again. Just letting you guys know at the very, very beginning, the experience is only part of it. So I will see you guys in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Overnight. You stay shiny. Bye!